I've been trying to think about who I am and what my story is and why anybody should care of like why me, like why should anybody listen to me. And they shouldn't, like and I think the inherent way that nobody is really that important. I'm no more important than anybody else, but at least as far as like why I think what I have to say matters, it's just that my brother died when I was 10, and a lot of how I view the world kind of goes back to his death. The recognition that like it was very sudden and very unpredictable. You know, it was a freak accident type of thing. It wasn't something that anybody would have predicted. He was only 16, and a kid who was only 10 at the time, like, I loved my brother pretty much unconditionally. There wasn't a whole lot that probably could be done that I wouldn't have loved him, and I admired him a lot. A lot of people did, and a lot of people showed up to his funeral. That even for a 16-year-old kid is just like surprising and kind of astonishing to like think that he filled up what was a very big church at the time with just a bunch of people that wanted to be there, I guess. And he was only 16. I think about how that affected me as far as like I didn't know how to process the grief of that. Like I couldn't understand why that had happened to somebody who was so beloved and who I cared about so much, and like as a kid assumed that it's like, oh, this has got to be a joke. Like, you know, I had literally convinced myself at different points as a child that it was literally a joke, that like he was going to climb out of his grave, or like his friends were going to go dig him up, and they'd be like, you know, laughing amongst themselves like, who, we got him. And it was just all a big joke on me, just for some sort of wrong that I like. It was just some prank, just some sort of prank just to get one over on me. And then, you know, you come to a realization that that's just the way the world is. I grew up and understood that he was not coming back, and it was not a joke, and that this was reality. Understanding that this was reality and having to come to terms with that, you know, I may have been 16, like I wasn't, or 16, 17, 18, whatever the case may be, by the time I would have finally like started to come out of what depression I was probably in for those years after his death. And just realizing that, yeah, the world is unfair, and that things do happen that are out of your control, and there are things that happen that you just can't undo. You know, caring about my brother and who he was so much, like I felt like I took on the burden of his life on my own, and like wanting to share who he was with people, and like wanting to take the energy that he had and apply it to myself in the positive ways of like improving myself, and kind of trying to live both of our lives vicariously through me, given that he lost his at such a young age and there was so much potential that he had. At least the way that I feel like I've interpreted that and act on that is like, my time is incredibly precious for a variety of reasons. My time is precious because like I only have this one life that I get to live. There's only so much time I have in my life. I don't know when my life is going to end. And so I want that time to be used with some degree of value. I think that should apply to everybody. Like I think the most valuable things in life are your connections to other people and your time. And those are the things that you'll remember most. Those are the things that'll be the most important to you throughout life. Being able to foster those and being able to facilitate those, I think, is like the primary goal, or should be the primary goal of most people's lives. And anything that is a barrier or that would get in the way of that, of forming those connections, having those deep bonds with people, being able to love people, being able to love, strangers, just being able to appreciate that we all were, strange word to use, but like blessed with the gift of life. And I say that to the extent that like I value all forms of life, whether it be human life or any sort of creature. It doesn't matter, just because our lives are so finite in the grand scheme of the universe. To waste that opportunity at such a brief moment of time that is our lives on the bullshit and minutia that we subject ourselves to is just very disheartening and disappointing. Of just knowing that there is a better way to do things, knowing that there are better ways to facilitate joy and happiness in people's lives, and being able to bring one another together, and being able to make basic survival a necessity and a right to all forms of life. And yet we're far more focused on other things. And just knowing that my life, as well as everybody else's, is just far more valuable than all of this shit that we subject ourselves to. And I want to do this because I just don't think that there's enough people out there talking in this sort of way. And that maybe if myself and other people can kind of share a sort of message that is about facilitating kindness and facilitating love towards one another, and being able to make our societies build a foundation of like survivability is like a basic human right, that comfort and joy can come after, and that people can find happiness when they're able to survive. The happiest moments in my life often have included other people. The bonds that I had formed with those people, and the love and care that I shared with those people, and just like that feeling that just nothing was going to take us apart. Knowing that and wanting to foster that, and then knowing again that there's just all these other things in the world that just like make it harder to do that. That just waste the valuable time that I have and that people have. I want to make people's lives easier. I know that people's lives can be easier. People just have to be able to see it.